Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Quest of the Future. Well, where I continue my pursuit of the greater things of technology that was beyond our current time, but which is definitely going to happen. This, as everybody remembers, is the plasma thruster, and today I'm giving you an update of what's going on here, what all this is. So this is the design we had finally come up with. Well, actually not really come up with, but landed on after vigorous trial and error. And remember what I told you last time, the whole mapping thing, this was insane work to do, but that is for a story for a different day. Now here's the thing. Let's talk about history, where it all began. It began with this thing here. This is now the Mark I thruster. This is what was initially supposed to work as a thruster, but after actually building the thing and taking it to trial and error, you realize, physics works in specific ways depending on how you apply it, and the way I had designed this the first time didn't allow it to function as intended. In fact, Mark I thruster, which is this one here, its improvement, Mark II thruster, looks so much sexy. And by the way, this is not a race thing. I'm not saying it looks better just because it's white. I'm not racist, but Snow Bunny was, giving. That was good. I mean, look at it. But my tastes aside, that was supposed to be Mark II. It was an improvement of the Mark I because I realized that Gauss's law was screwing me over with this thing here, where the electrostatic field was too weak to actually function. So I reduced the electrostatic area to make it into this form here. But still, that was not enough. That still had to be improved a bit more. That's where we skip over to the Mark III thruster. Now this one still had the same issues as the Mark I and II, where the Gauss's field here was still too weak to actually cause anything. The electrostatic field density was not enough to cause the actions needed. That's why I had improvements by now integrating the magnetic confinement elements into it to now overcome that. Problem is, I thought I was making a thruster with this thing. I wasn't. This thing won't work as a thruster no matter how much I try. Why? Because it's not supposed to work as a thruster. These are actually aluminum wires, aluminum magnet wires, but it only works if I supply tremendous currents to it, more than the home power supply will even allow. So this one was out.
Ready, Barry?
Yes, Crawl.
3, 2, 1, fire. This is a linear induction motor. It uses about 100 kilowatts, and it can accelerate 4-pound missiles such as this up to nearly 100 miles an hour.
Because it didn't work in the way specific area that I needed it to, so it required a bit more of how can I call it, improvements. But improvements in the areas of research and development really require you to just backtrack a few things and go back and forth between this and that until something works. The driver system was not as complicated. This was just a basic driver system. All I needed was just a high frequency, high voltage AC system to drive the, one of the primary coils, because this one actually has 3 active coils inside, but I only needed the confinement coil to work, which is actually controlled by a direct DC power supply, which is, I think, this module here, which actually feeds into this for now, the AC from the ZVS. But even the confinement didn't work because the magnetic, the B value inside here wasn't sufficient to cause the, the confinement of the ions generated. And again, Gauss's law fucked me over because there was not enough electrostatic field density to do the actions that are required. So this, even though was supposed to be the final, I know all of you understand what that word means. Final is what everybody goes to when their iterations are just, you think the first one will do, but then it won't. But you live and you learn. So how did I improve on this? Well, I went back to the basics. I thought that maybe I was doing too much with this, and which I was. So now brings us to the latest iteration, which is these babies here. As you can see, remarkably small. I am so in love with this design here. Tell me this does not look like Tony Stark's repulsor. And for all intents and purposes, that's exactly what this is going to be after I'm complete with this. This is going to be so epic. The first thing I'm going to do is pretty much shooting out plasma blasts with that. So that's now the final design. So look at this. Came from that size, reduced it to that size, came to this size, and now we're here. This now is what it's supposed to be. Look at the size difference. Not only that size, but as well as how thin it is in comparison. This is now what I was supposed to build. Now, as you can see, there are two designs here which I'm contemplating on between this and this. Because why? The electrostatic field needs to have a tangential component in order for this machine to work. It can't be completely radial. It can't emanate from the center to the edge in one direct line. It has to have at least some sort of, motion this way. So the first way I tried was using the triode method where, actually this was the first method. I thought most probably it'll just work like how a magnetron works. The same principles that they do. I was hoping that the pointed sections will be able to force the electrostatic field to now go in a tangential manner, but testing proved otherwise. It mostly still sparked. It shouldn't spark. Corona discharge is what we're looking for. So I went to this one, and guess what? It sparked even more. But I know how to deal with that later on in post-process. I don't need to actually change anything here. As it is, here everything is perfect. So this is what it looks like underneath here, the sweet stuff. Let's see if I can remove this. I only have like, oh good, it actually came out. Yeah, it looks like that now in there. So the coils will now go inside here, but again, we need phase-shifted coils. That's a story for another day. This, however, just now requires me to do less because this is taking full optimization of Gauss's law. The electrostatic field density because of this region is so intense that I should have no problem with that anymore. The only problem now I'm going to have is this, the driver coils. This thing here, after much realizing, is a megahertz machine, meaning it won't operate with kilohertz. You need at least megahertz to operate. This thing won't even supply me that. If you look very closely there, I'm sure you can notice that these capacitors pretty much tell you the limit of this. It's what? 50 kilohertz? Yeah, there it is. 50 kilohertz, it's somewhere there. That's as far as this resonance circuit will go. 50 kilohertz, and that's like, at the very least, a magnitude below what I need. And I need at least 2 magnitudes higher than that, 5 megahertz to 10 megahertz. So this circuit is out. But this one here can actually do what this one can't, just not in the same way. It requires so much feedback mechanisms that I honestly don't want to even deal with, but I'll figure that one out later. So there we are. But for the most part, all this research and development has led me to what? To what this. This is now the final form. Now this, even though it's smaller, I need 6 of these in order for it to work. The first 3 have been printed. I just need, well, actually the first 4 have been printed. Now I just need 2 more to connect into now a hexagonal pattern and now feed them with 3-phase AC. That's what's actually going to make this work in this schema, in this nature. Now, until this point of view, I know what you all are wondering. What the fuck is that thing over there? This is simple. This is an electrostatic ramjet. Problem is, it faces the same problem as everything else. It requires a very high frequency, high current AC, 3-phase AC to function. But this is by all means an electrostatic ramjet I made using quartz tubes from the chemistry department. But yeah, that actually works. It's basically Nikola Tesla's death ray thing. I reverse engineered his designs and found out actually how he was planning on making that. No wonder he didn't want to build this thing. This thing is insane. Basically, at this end here, it shoots a strong plasma beam many kilometers in that direction, and that plasma beam pretty much incinerates everything. I know what you're saying. Am I going to build this? No, that's a weapon of mass destruction. The US government is going to come for me if I complete this. So I'm not even touching this. I'm leaving that. I'm going to focus on the things that the US is not going to occupy my country for, which is this. So that's the update, guys. I will inform you what happens next after I actually now finish connecting the electronic components to this part. And then from there, we will continue on into now making an actual hoverboard from this, because these now are designed to now make the actual hoverboard. This is something you can now put on an actual board and make it now into a levitating element. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you for following me through this journey, the journey to the future. This is where it all begins. Where it goes, that's for future us to kind of figure out. Until next time. And here is our number one worker doing God's work and building the things that I probably couldn't have never been able to do without it. So thank you, God, for making me alive in a time where 3D printers are readily accessible. If it wasn't for this, I would be screwed over. I just don't have space for this thing. And plus, filament is fucked up. This thing is full of moisture. That thing is... I'm just praying to God it finishes. Like, it prints if it wants to. If it doesn't, if I go away, if I decide to leave the house and just let it print, I might be screwed over. I just come home to find a mess, trust me. Half of this spool is pretty much wasted filament.
And when I'm making these comparisons, I'm doing what every engineer does almost every day of his life. I'm using an analogy. Now, a good engineer knows when to use an analogy and where it breaks down. Lines over this motor. They come from a north pole into a south, like that, and the whole field pattern is moving along, like the magnetic river. Now, suppose we could sit at one place over the machine, such as in that little square, and watch the field lines go by. Notice the direction of the arrows. At the moment, the field is to the left. Now it's upwards, to the right, downwards, left, up, right, down. So it's left, up, right, down. And the rotation, you see, is clockwise, which is to say, rolling backwards. Magnetic machines get better as they are made smaller, whereas electromagnetic machines are better as they are made bigger. This last fact I can prove to you in more general terms by using what I call my goodness models. Now, every machine has a magnetic circuit which I represent like this. The flux in that circuit is made to induce a current into an electric circuit which links it, like that. The force you can get from a machine is proportional only to the product of the flux in the magnetic circuit and the current in the electric circuit. So flux and current are the things you want lots of. The thing which stops you having as much as you'd like, of course, is the resistance in the case of the electric circuit and the magnetic resistance, or reluctance as we call it, in the magnetic circuit. The resistance of an electric circuit is proportional to its length and inversely proportional to its area. So if I take a second electric circuit, which is twice as big in every linear dimension as the first, then its length will be twice as great, but its area is 4 times as great. So the resistance of the big circuit altogether is only half the resistance of the small circuit. And when we put the two circuits together to make our machine, the combined effect of the two is to make the big machine 4 times as good as the small one. So it seems as if the rule for electromagnetic machines is that the bigger they are, the better they are. Now, with purely magnetic motors, the rules seem to work the other way around. Turn the handle and see what happens. At once we see the walls building up and the backward rotation and something else. Can you see the spirals of filings running up the hill into the middle? The inward movement of these filings implies there must be an outward travelling magnetic field to produce it. And if this is true, then it's very exciting indeed. because centrifugal magnetism, which is what this would be, is unknown at present. But if I take this ring, which wants to float up there, and I force it down alongside the copper, then the copper begins to spin. And if I put it on the other side, it spins the other way. It is as if there was an upward sweeping something which is causing the copper to spin. And we call that upward sweeping something a travelling magnetic field. This is a mechanical model of what you've just seen. Instead of a row of coils, we've got a row of rods. We're going to feed them with alternating current so that each one can rise and fall. And when we turn the whole thing, we get the impression of something travelling along. But I want you to notice that nothing actually travels along, because each rod only moves up and down. The thing that makes it real is when we put something into one of the troughs of the wave. Then something real travels along, can make it go the other way. If you watch an individual rod, such as this one, you'll see that it's only going up and down. There is no horizontal movement at all. Only the ball is a real thing moving side to side. It's exactly the same with this magnetic river. I can switch it on, and there is nothing above there, nothing moving horizontally until I put in the aluminium, and it's like putting the ball into the rods. So this is our first step towards a magnetic river.
死ぬまで遊び明かそうじゃないの。僕を誰だと思ってんの。